Welcome to day 2 of ATX Television Festival. My name is Meredith Borders. I'm the managing editor here at the Alamo Drafthouse and also of its pop culture website, birthmoviesdeath.com. And I am incredibly excited to be introing Hannibal for you guys here today. Can we just talk for a minute about how lucky we are to have a show like Hannibal? On network television, no less. This is an extraordinary thing that we are witnessing in real time. There's nothing else like it. The unbelievable Bryan Fuller is creating this beautiful, dark, hideous, scary, wonderful fairy tale just for us. And he is here today, so can we invite him up on stage? Hi, Bryan.
How are you?
Good. You want to kick it off for everybody?
Yes, thank you all for coming. It's who all has seen it on Thursday night? Great. So it's going to be a different experience on the big screen, of course, and I hope that the projectionists can turn up the volume because the sound design is amazing. Yes. Thank you all for coming out. I hope you enjoy, and we're going to do a Q&A afterwards. So enjoy the show.
Thank you. And we have a pretty exciting surprise here. So our friends at Mondo generously donated this incredibly exclusive and crazy beautiful vinyl of the soundtrack that Bryan writes out, which is like an incredible soundtrack. And we're going to give one away today. And I picked a number at random, a seat number. So I want all of you to look forward. So your seat number is actually the table in front of you. It's posted on the front of your seat table. The number is 1505. So look a little further. That's you! Come on up and get it. I got one of these for myself. It's really beautiful. The actual vinyl is tartar colored, so it's pretty special. This sold out in seconds. It went crazy, crazy fast because obviously the score is so gorgeous, and Mondo does amazing work. So here you go. Congratulations. And just one more reminder, here at the Draft House and also just at ATX Fest, we want you guys to just respect the amazing content that's going to be in front of your eyes right now. So no talking, no phones. We don't want to see your phone. We don't want to hear your phone. Be quiet and just, respect this beauty you're about to see. And then we're going to have a Q&A afterward. Stick around for that. And then also just try and enjoy that, as a person. Don't spend your entire time on your phone for that either. Just enjoy it because this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. You guys are going to have a blast. Enjoy.
Well, let's have another hand for those Hannibal episodes, huh? Wow. How about that heart stag? Yikes. I'm Erik Adams. I'm the television editor of the AV Club, and it's my great pleasure to bring to the stage the showrunner of Hannibal, Mr. Bryan Fuller.
Hello.
Hey.
So that's the first 2 episodes. It gets weirder from there, believe it or not.
Which is kind of hard to believe because this is a very weird way to begin a new season.
Yes. It's not necessarily inviting, but come on in.
I wanted to talk to you just to start it off. Why begin season 3 on just Hannibal and Bedelia? I'm sure there's a lot of people who are waiting to get closure on what happened at the end of season 2, and then we're already in Europe. They've got their own established life there, and it's in this beautiful dream state. What were some of the motivations behind establishing that new status quo?
Well, really it was about, we left season 2 with Hannibal and Bedelia, and so it felt like it was an organic way of starting season 3 with those same characters, and they don't know who survived, so perhaps the audience shouldn't either.
And then, what was it like to build the suspense about the other characters still being alive when their names are in the credits?
It's kind of pointless, ultimately. And that's one of the things that was interesting in the process as we're getting the show up off the ground again, and any kind of secrets that we may have been holding close to the vest, the advertising team spoils. So at a certain point, you just surrender and hope that people will just be like, oh, I guess Alana's alive because there she is in the trailer.
There she is in the trailer. There's Francis, so we
Right.
already see him.
Yes.
So at this point, how much is the text leading what's going into Hannibal?
A lot. Actually, there's so much in the first episode in particular that is taken right from the novel Hannibal. We just shifted around the characters. We shifted around who the scenes would be with. The scene in the Palazzo where Hannibal's giving a speech on Dante. That's from the movie and the book where we had Pazzi, who we didn't see until the second episode. That was him in there being nervous in the Bedelia seat. So there's still quite a bit, and I'm watching the show, and I hear so much of Thomas Harris's dialogue being lifted right from the pages. A lot of stuff that isn't actually supposed to be dialogue, but just is such beautiful prose that we wedge it into actors' mouths.
And even into the tiny details, like the Emporium that Bedelia shops at is right from the books as well, right?
Yes. There was actually, in the first episode, there was a whole scene between Dimmond and Bedelia that we cut where she's implicated a little bit more. You see her driving him into the situation, and we shot a Viridal in Florence, and it was not very well dressed, and actually neither was Jillian. So I was like, I hate what she's wearing. I hate this location. This scene's never going to see the light of day. So it actually made her character much more sympathetic because she was wearing an ugly hat.
But I love what she ends up being dressed in, that hat, that coat.
Yes.
And then she's sitting at the train stop, and it matches the train.
Yeah, we color timed the train to match her coat. So it was almost there, and I was like, make that look exactly like that, and will be designed.
Talk a little bit about filming in these locations. Just beautiful European locations through these first two episodes.
Well, the first show, the opening of the first episode, was shot in. We had our second unit director, Chris Byrne, go out and shoot all of those sequences in Paris, and it was like a day and a half of shooting, and it happened to be the same week that the Charlie Hebdo attacks were. So he was prepped to start shooting, and then the attack happened. And so that opening of Paris is dedicated to the memory of the artists who died that day. And strangely enough, one of the terrorists was escaping on motorcycle in a leather jacket, so we were filming a motorcycle sequence with a guy in a leather jacket, and they were constantly being stopped by the police and questioned, and we're like, we're doing Hannibal, like we didn't.
International terrorism cannot stop ruining the show. What's going on?
Yeah, so Je suis Charlie. And the Florence contingent we shot 5 days in Florence, and it was interesting because we couldn't afford to bring any of our department heads out there. And so that's why when I saw the scene with Jillian in an ill-fitting coat and a collapsed hat, she looked like Amy Sherman Palladino, because she always has those hats and the big fluffy coats, and I was like, she looks like Amy Sherman Palladino, who hopefully everybody is going to be seeing tonight at the Gilmore Girls reunion. So I just thought that was Amy's aesthetic and not Jillian's aesthetic, and off we went.
The aspect ratios in the premiere just really pop on the big screen. It was really great to see those. Was there any thought given to doing the black and white in full scale at any time, or did you want to keep the distinguishing there between the widescreen and the?
Well, I love playing with aspect ratio. I think especially in horror movies, if you look at the wider variety of widescreen horror, John Carpenter stuff is always very widescreen. Rosemary's Baby, it's very widescreen, and the aspect ratio is a little more tense. So we did the black and white thing for Flashbacks, and everybody does. So I asked the network, I was like, would you mind if we played with aspect ratio for some of these flashbacks, so we could just have a different aesthetic immediately recognizable as this is a different time? And they were like, cool, sure, we trust you, do whatever.
Were there any specific reference points you were going for in the black and white flashbacks? It feels like it's taken from a vintage horror movie, maybe Universal horror or.
Well, The Haunting. You know, we talked a lot about Robert Wise's direction in The Haunting, which was black and white and widescreen, and so much of the horror in that was sound design, unlike the remake, which showed too much. But the original is all these meticulous widescreen frames, and that was absolutely the intention of bringing a little Robert Wise's Haunting into Gideon's story for the flashbacks.
And what are some of the advantages of working in black and white? What can you do in that format that you can't do with color?
Well, it's all about the contrast, I guess. Ultimately, in color, you have different levels of saturation, which is another tool for us to play with, because sometimes we oversaturate scenes and sometimes we undersaturate them depending on what's happening in the scene. So really, it almost forces the audience to lean forward into it, because you're not used to seeing black and white, and I love, you know, Harrell as somebody who championed Hollywood glamour through the black and white frame. And it felt like it was just an opportunity for us to use a different tool in distinguishing the time frame, since we're in four different time frames in the episode.
The food is just looking better and better. Should I be worried about myself? Do you feel that the food looks great as this show keeps on going on?
It does. It looks amazing, and you know, one of the bacon wrapped heart, I think in season 1 was probably the most delicious looking thing. But actually, as a result of working on this show and doing a lot of research into animal intelligence and emotional sophistication, I feel like if you're eating meat, you're already a cannibal, so eating a person is not that big of a deal. If you can eat a cow and a pig, a person, it's not that different.
All right, well, when they catch me for eating a person, I will say you gave the A-OK.
Yes, you have my permission to eat whoever you want.
So what's the relationship with standards and practices like now? You know, the heart stag, I don't know if that's what you guys called it on set or not, but when Hannibal's broken heart unfolds and becomes this weird human stag hybrid, which is something that has been played with through the whole series, that's definitely, as it's unfolding, that's some of the most disturbing imagery I've ever seen on television, let alone network television.
Good. Actually, the relationship with standards and practices is one of my favorites. Our standards and practices executive is Joanna Jameson, and she's lovely and supportive, and I'll call her and say, like, we have to cut off a guy's face and he eats his nose and feeds the rest of it to his dog, so how do we do that? And she's like, well, just turn down the red so it's not so bloody, and backlight it and you'll be fine. And if we tell you know, she's so cool, and I'll call her and say, we're doing this sex scene. She's like, no side boob, no humping, otherwise do everything you want. And she couldn't be more supportive, because it's, you know, it's standards and practices, so it's about America. It's not about NBC, and America has a really, forgive me for lack of a better expression, but a really fucked up view of the human body. We can do horrible, horrible things to the human body, but we can't do beautiful things, and I think that's fucked up.
But also a great contrast, a great divide that Hannibal rides. You know, it is some of the most fucked up things on screen, but
right.
always presented so beautifully.
Which is the whole idea for it. The show has to be as elegant and eloquent as the title characters. So it's looking at the horrible through Hannibal's eyes, and he sees beauty in everything. So we have to present horror in the manner that our title character sees it.
Let's talk about Hannibal for a little while now. Where's he at mentally, emotionally right now? Does he feel like he's got the jump on everyone, even if he doesn't know that they're still alive? Or does he feel like he's about to be captured?
I think he feels all of the above. I mean, where he is he's got a broken heart, and demonstratively a broken heart. And there is an element of him in this season that is a little bit reckless, because he wants to be seen, and it's good that he is traveling with his therapist who can counsel him on certain issues. Whether he listens to her or not is to be seen. But what I like about this season is that now all of the cards are on the table. All the characters know who Hannibal Lecter is. The audience has known for years, but the characters now know, and they can have a absurdist conversation about what he does, and that's where I think a lot of the black humor comes from in the show, and it gets increasingly more black and humorous as this Italian chapter goes on. To Jillian is laugh out loud funny in episode 6. Like, she's hilarious.
Episode 1 probably has the most pun to minute ratio of the show so far. Are there any eating people word plays that you're looking forward to using, or that you haven't gotten to use yet?
There's a few coming up, but it makes us groan like every time that we do it, and I'll see it in a draft and I'll groan. I'll be like, oh, should I cut that? And like, okay, we'll just do another one. It's different from the last one. So if it's a new pun, I think I'd like to have you for dinner for the last time. Like, that one's played out, but there's still, you're a spicy little tamale. So
that's good. There's still ground to be broken in that area. Because that's every time you do that gives journalists like myself permission to keep on putting that kind of stuff in our headlines.
Yes.
So Abigail shows up.
Yes.
Again. How does Casey feel about being brought back and taken away and brought back?
She loves it. She thought she was dead and gone in season 1, and I was like, you're not dead. Like, we're going to bring you back at the end of season 2. And she was like, okay, well, I'll find another job until then. And then at the end of season 2, I said, we want to have you back and do this other thing and have her. The thing that I really liked about having Abigail back in the second episode is the moment when she looks at the priest, and that gave her some validity. So in my mind, this is functioning as both Abigail is a manifestation of Will's subconscious, and also Abigail's a ghost. And both are true.
And I liked that you kind of sprinkled those things throughout. This was, anecdotally, this was a point of contention in my household as I was watching the screeners with my wife, and she was very angry that Abigail was back. I was like, give the show some time, maybe this isn't what it seems. So
you go, ha!
I didn't want to say "told you so," but
right, but did you?
Yeah.
Well, we talked about having it go on for several episodes, and I just felt that would be dishonest. And since this episode was about the grieving process and how tragic it was for Will to be reunited with her and only see her murdered moments later, that he needed closure as a character with Abigail Hobbs, and so it felt organic to Fight Club her in a way for Will, and also write a poem to grief. And he sincerely is mourning her loss and going through that process. I watched the second episode with friends after the first episode, and during the act where we're going through how he's being brought to life and she's being sent to the grave, there was so much sniffling, and it was sad to see the character go. But we bring her back in episode 9. We do flashbacks of what her life was like with Hannibal when she was supposed to be dead. So that's coming up later in the season. I love Casey Roll. I want to keep writing for her, and I have more plans for Abigail's ghost in the future.
Going down into the catacombs at the end of the second episode, it's a very sort of cat and mouse sort of sequence. It's a little bit different than anything that's been on the show before. What was it like setting that scene up and executing it?
It was interesting because we had a much bigger idea in terms of the sewers beneath Palermo. And what we ended up with budgetarily is the catacombs were no bigger than this stage, and it was just a return that they kept on going in circles and shooting it in different ways, because all we could literally build is like 6 walls and then change the corpses as we were rolling through. So I wanted kind of an epic chase through the what's the movie with Joseph Cotten? I'm blanking on it now. The Quiet Man, is that it? Third Man. Yeah. So I wanted a big third man sequence, and then we saw the set and we're like, well, Vincenzo, how are you going to shoot this to make it look like, because it has to last an entire act. So it was, like even watching it now, I just watch and go like, but they just keep on walking around that same corner. I hope they don't notice.
Did anybody notice that it was the same corner?
Every time. Thank you for not noticing.
My personal favorite part of that is that scan across Hannibal's face. What's it like to set this season up where Will and Hannibal are in separate spaces? The only time that we're seeing them is together is in memories. What's it like to drive them toward the meeting point again?
Well, it really is if the first season was the bromance and the second season was a nasty breakup, the third season is really how do you find closure with a relationship that has fallen apart when both parties are so damaged by what's happened. And separating C-3PO and R2-D2 and The Empire Strikes Back was kind of like, well, let's just get them apart and give everybody a new dance partner. And so Hannibal has Bedelia, and Will has Abigail in this episode, and he has Chio, played by Tao Okamoto, in the third episode, who's wonderful. And we see Jack with Potsy, and we see Alana with the Vergers. So everybody has a new partner in the storytelling, and I feel like it freshened it up in a way. And then when we get to episode later in the season, when Will and Hannibal do reunite, it feels earned when they're sitting next to each other and there's two friends and they've both gone through so much to that point in the season that it felt like it was right to keep them apart, because that moment of return for them to their relationship was a powerful one.
Now, you've opened up the analogy, who's C-3PO and who's R2-D2?
Gosh, I would say, Hannibal's C-3PO because he's prissier, but R2-D2 is so scrappy and brave. I think there's, the analogy is incomplete, sadly.
We see Zachary Quinto very briefly in the premiere. How much more will we be seeing of him? Is he just playing a corpse for the entire season?
No, it was very funny because I asked Zach if we worked together on Heroes and we're friends, and we've been trying to figure out how to cross paths again. And I called him at the beginning of the season and asked if he wanted to play Dimmond, and he said, I'm not available, but shit, I love Gillian Anderson. I wish I could do scenes with Gillian Anderson. And I was like, well, I'll write this other role for you where you can play her patient. And he's like, I'm so busy. And I was like, give me a day and a half, and we'll get you in, and we'll get like 3 great scenes, and it'll be like a one-act play with you and Gillian. And that's what we did, and it's great.
And then, of course, we have another Il Mostro in the distance, in Francis Dolarhyde. Without going too deep into spoiler territory, what can you tell us about how that story is going to be set up, and when might we see him?
We start the Red Dragon arc in episode 8, and Richard Armitage is so wonderful in the role. I knew he was going to be good, but I had no idea how good he was going to be. And what I love about the novel Red Dragon is that you have so much sympathy for Francis Dolarhyde, because he is a man who's clearly struggling with his sanity and losing that battle and trying to do the right thing and falling in love and seeing humanity and light for the first time and wondering if he's on the right path or not. So what we did with our version of it, we met him as he was going insane. So a lot of episode 8 is non-dialogue, with Richard Armitage alone struggling with his insanity, and you feel bad for this guy because he's bonkers and there's no saving him. And then when he meets Rutina Wesley playing Reba McClane, you're so rooting for the relationship. And that was one of the things I was so excited about Red Dragon, is that relationship between Reba McClane and Francis Dolarhyde. It's one of the most romantic relationships I've read where you have this guy who's taking a blind woman to the zoo to experience the animals, and he arranged for her to pet the tiger, and it's so romantic. And the man who thought of that gesture is, you know, a horrible murderer of families. So it goes back to Socrates saying good and terrible can exist in the same human being.
And you've mentioned this in a few interviews leading up to the new season, but how many more seasons do you see Hannibal having? What would you, in your ideal run of the show, how many more years would you want to go?
I started with 7, and now I think 5. You know, the 3 and 4 collapsed into 3 because we couldn't really sustain the Italian chapter for an entire season. So we condensed it into 7 episodes, so we weren't going to be treading water, and it clips along at a very nice pace. And then we have The Red Dragon, which was also going to be a full season, but then I realized, you know, previously they've done this in 2 hours, and 6 should be enough for us to tell our story. So season 4 is probably, if we were able to do it, our grandest departure yet, and it's even a bigger reinvention of the show than this season. So, knock wood, we'll do it, and if not, maybe we'll do a movie, and if not, maybe a comic book, and if not, I'll tell you about it at a convention.
That's the nice thing. There's so many different options, so many different places where you can go with this now. We have some time to open it up to audience Q&A, so if anyone has any questions for Bryan, please speak. Yes, back there.
I hate to open the non-Hannibal question, but you brought it up in that last answer. Is the Pushing Daisies comic ever going to be a thing?
You know, we did 2 issues, and Kath Lingenfelter, who's in the audience and worked on Pushing Daisies, also worked on the comic book. And, you know, that was such a fun experience, that show. We had such a wonderful writing staff, and the comic was for Wildstorm, and then when Wildstorm crashed and burned, we asked DC if they would print it. We're like, that's not our thing. So it's dead for all intents and purposes, but if there perchance is a Netflix show or something, then I'm gonna haul that shit out. So I don't want you to find the comic because I'm gonna rip it off. So.
Yeah, yes, right there.
Why did Hannibal kill Abigail?
Because he wanted to teach Will a lesson, and that he did. It's one of those things where, like, I am so hurt by you. This is how hurt I am. I'm going to hurt you, and I'm going to hurt me, and this is my pain on the outside, and that's what you did.
Oh yes, right there.
There's a line in the book where Hannibal Lecter asks Will, I think, how a certain cop is because he was a person around.
Yes.
So I'm just really curious, are we going to see Hannibal's basement?
You know, we were going to, in episode 9, where we do the Abigail flashback of what life was like living with Hannibal while she was supposed to be dead, and we talked about one of the scenes. We had 5 scenes that we really wanted to do, and we ended up being able to do 3 of them because the story just squeezing them. And one of them was getting Hettienne Park back to find Abigail in the basement and be like, what the hell are you up to? So she was supposed to be the thing that Hettienne saw in the basement. And you know, maybe we'll do that story in the future and pretend to be surprised.
Down here.
What do you think to expand Jillian's role from season 2 into season 3?
Jillian. Yeah, you know, she's so much fun, and it was like she told me like a year and a half ago that X-Files was going to be coming back, and she was like, you can't tell anybody. So I was sitting there going like, I know something you don't know. So that was great fun, and she's really a lovely human being, and when you see her off screen, and she's so infectiously likable and girlish in her enthusiasm, and none of the shell that you see of Bedelia. So it was really fascinating to see what an amazing actress she is, because she's not Scully, she's not Bedelia, she's actually a really bright, lovable human being, and I just wanted to keep working with her, and she. on this show, she had such a crazy schedule because she's a dedicated mother and her children are very important to her. So we could get her at opportune times. And she, like last season, she would be shooting Crisis till 5 a.m. in the morning, get on a 9 o'clock flight from Chicago to Toronto, land at 10:30, get into makeup by 11:30, be in front of the camera at noon, and back on her way to the airport at 6. So that shows how dedicated she is, and she was always very grateful when we were shooting on stage because nearby would be a bedroom set, and you would just find her in setups just sleeping for 10 minutes and then coming back and being totally fresh and on point. So I hope this is the beginning of a long working relationship for us.
Back there.
Do you have any idea when NBC might give you a decision, timetable? And also, thank you for getting involved in the Titan books fiasco.
Oh yeah, with the no idea in terms of NBC, and the thing with the Titan books, that was basically what happened. If you don't know, there was a hardcover limited edition, and we autographed all of these inserts, myself, Maz, and Hugh. And then there was a snafu with the website, and they oversold it, and then they canceled all their orders. And I went to Titan. I was like, can't we just print more? I mean, because I got a lot of tweets of people saying like, I got it, but then they canceled it. And so they were like, sure. So they printed more, and we signed more, and I'm glad it worked out.
To the question about season 4, does having the international financing behind the show increase the chance that it could happen if NBC says no?
It's difficult because it really helps international to have American network representation for a show, so it helps that selling point. And if we did get another network involved, chances are the budget would be drastically cut because they're like, well, that's hand-me-down, so we should get a discount. And then, every penny goes on screen, and it's such a challenging show to produce, and I'm a horrible taskmaster because I'm always like sending the dish back, going like, no, this isn't, like, we got to shoot that again. You should have spent more time on it.
You put Jillian in a weird hat.
Yes, you did. Oh my God, I got so mad. Yeah, that was.
I want to see this hat now.
Oh, it looks like a collapsed souffle, and there was like a fur potato sack that was supposed to be fitted and then wasn't, and so our wardrobe people were mortified because they had to ship everything to Italy and they weren't allowed to go. So it wasn't our wardrobe people. It looked better when they had it on in Toronto, and then when the wardrobe people in Italy put it on, it was a boy. And I saw like people were tweeting pictures of it. Look, they're filming, and I was like, what's she wearing? How did this happen? So yeah, like the shit hit the fan, and my head exploded.
Oh, we have time for 2 more questions. Yes, in the back there. Well, let's take them both.
Is there any person that you want to make a guest star in Hannibal? And can I say a recommendation? Malcolm McDowell would be fantastic.
Malcolm McDowell would be amazing.
I would love you eternally.
I've been long wishing that we could get David Bowie to play Hannibal's uncle, because the hunger is a big influence on this show. It's a pretentious European art film, and I tell every director that comes into Hannibal, you are not making television. You are making a pretentious art film. I don't want to see standard coverage. I don't want to see dirty overs. I don't want to see if you shake that camera, I will fucking stabilize it in post. So don't even think about. So there's a lot of sort of guideposts for the show, but I love Malcolm McDowell, and there's a Time After Time reference in the show when Bedelia is like reaching for the doorknob. It was Mary Steenburgen, and then her friend got killed. So that's a good suggestion. Thank you.
Is there any, I guess, do you ever want to deviate from Harris's source material, or is your goal to adapt all 4 novels?
Well, I think we've been deviating pretty heavily in our own way. You know, I've always described the writing staff as mashup DJs. We're spinning tracks from Red Dragon with lyrics from Silence of the Lambs and trying to create our own Heresian Hannibal tale. That being said, there's the idea for season 4 is taking something from the book, like the seed of something from the book, and completely reinventing it. So if we do actually do a season 4, there's a cool way to do something in the book that hasn't been done, or the books that hasn't been done, that we will do in a crazy way.
We got a twofer up there, so I think there was one more question. Yeah, right down there.
Hello.
I was wondering what the narrative logic behind the pendulum of light is when Will goes into the mind of the killer, because I'm not sure if there's been scenes when he doesn't use it before, but I noticed that when he's looking into the stag heart, that it's not there, and I was wondering.
Well, we reintroduce it with Red Dragon, so I wanted to keep it gone until Red Dragon comes in, and it's actually a line from the novel where in his mind there's something in the novel in the first few pages about a pendulum in his mind swinging and time rolling backwards, and so I thought, well, let's just see that. Let's make that cinema. So it's something right from the book.
All right, and that does it for our Q&A. Give another round of applause for Bryan, for Hannibal, for the ATX Television Festival. Thank you all for coming out. I've been Eric Adams. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.